Alright, so let's continue. Now in this part, we will be deleting the document from the temporary database once the order is confirmed. But before we do that, there are a few things that we have to refactor, as in some code that we will be refactoring. So heading back to the editor, right over here, the thing is that we got a few if-else checks. Like firstly, we are checking whether the request method is of get. If it is, then we are proceeding with the things that we are doing. If not, we are sending back an error. Then we have another one where we are checking whether the order document exists in the temporary database. If not, then we are sending back the error in such a way. So the thing is that instead of having the if else in such way, and sorry about the voice crack. So over here we are checking, like we have the if else. So this thing leads to nesting of the code, and instead of doing it in such way that whether the request method is of get, what we can do, we can check that if this thing is not equals to get. If that's the case, then just return back the error right away, and in that way we will be able to keep the code as lean as possible. So let's do that. Firstly, I'm gonna move this entire thing, cut this entire thing, and over here we will be returning back the error, but only if the request method is not get. And in the same way, we can check whether if the order doesn't exist. If that's the case, then again we can return back the error right over here. So if the order document doesn't exist, then we are just returning back the error. So that's one thing. Now the other thing is that over here we are checking the order ID which is coming from the query parameters, like from the URL. So we are just taking it and running it through to the database that we have. So over here, if we actually visit the confirm order with something, so firstly this is working. Now the thing is that we are just running the value of this query parameter right away. But suppose if the value is something like this, like some value which is not a valid UUID, like which is not in a format of a valid UUID, even then we are running the query, which doesn't make any sense. Because if we know that this is like there is a value which is not a valid UUID, which can never be a valid UUID, then there is no reason to even run it. So in order to do that, in order to make sure that we are only running an actual UUID value, we have a function provided by the same package, and the function is validate. So this thing will return back a boolean value whether or not the value, the UUID value, whether or not a string is a valid UUID. Got confused over there, but I hope you get the point. So firstly, what we need to do, we need to import from the UUID package, and the function is validate. So let's actually rename it as validate UUID with a colon actually. And right over here where we are checking whether the order ID doesn't exist, below that we can check whether we can just run the order ID through the validate UUID function. And if this is not true by adding the logical operator, then in that case we can say that order ID is not valid. Right. So now if we refresh, we are gonna get this error. But if we actually pass a UUID which is valid but not like expired or something like that, it's gonna send back the respective error. So that's good. So that were a few things that I guess we had to fix. Now there is actually one other thing that I realized just now. that what exactly, like, this is fine, this is working, but instead of sending back the error in such a way, we also have to send back, like, we should be showing a page with the respective message, because this thing, it is not a good user experience. So the thing is, and there is actually one other thing. There's actually one other thing. We are going to get back to it. Now the other thing is that over here we are awaiting for these requests to finish. So the first one is where we are adding the entry to the Google Sheet, and the other one is where we are sending the message to the Slack channel. So the thing is, these are something which are for us. So keeping the user hanging for these requests to finish doesn't make sense. We can directly run them, we can make the request, but there is no reason to keep the user hanging, to keep the user waiting. So we will be removing the await. And another thing, so in the end we are sending back the order, right? So over here, let's actually send back something else. Let's keep it the same order, because I kind of need to think about how exactly can we show a page with the respective message, as in if the order ID is not valid, or invalid API endpoint, or this. You do get the point. Like, instead of showing it in this way, we should have a better one, like a proper page, stuff like that. So I think I will have to give it a thought, and I'm gonna get back to it once I figure out. By the way, we don't have to, like, we have to await for this thing to finish, so do not blindly remove all the awaits. This is something which is required, because only after the auth we will be able to make the request, right? Like the sheets request. So let's do that. Let's continue in the next part, but before that, let me just quickly test out the entire thing. So let's make an order over here. Let's place the order. Boom, done. Let's fetch it. Feels good when everything is working as expected. I'm gonna refresh. Cool. By the way, we also have to delete the document, so let's take care of that. But let me just check. Yep, just received the notification. Boom, everything is working, so that's great. Plus we have the document right back, like, without having to wait, so that is good. And let's actually work on deleting the document. Like, let's do it right now. So for that, if we take a look at the SDK, the functions, the methods that are available, we got delete. So let's do it right now. Over here, we can actually delete the document, as I said earlier, right away. So when we are fetching it from the database, like once we have the order, which means at this point, we can delete the document. Like, we are fetching the order, we are checking whether it exists. If not, we are throwing back an error, but if it is, we are proceeding with the rest of the things. So right over here we can delete it, so that if the user clicks multiple times, we can be rest assured that the document is deleted and we do not have duplicate orders. So let's do it. I'm gonna make use of the same function, await. And over here we can make use of the delete thing and just call it with the order ID, and I think that would work. We don't even have to await for this thing. Actually, we don't want the this thing, let's actually wait it, because we are waiting over here. We are not waiting over here. Let's actually remove it. Let's remove this thing right away. So if I refresh the list, we still have the document, but if I refresh, it will again make the request. I should be getting the notification. I just did. But now if we take a look at the database, boom, it's deleted. So that is beautiful. So yep, that would be it. And in the next part, before we jump onto the email one, like sending the email, I'll try to figure out a way to actually show these message on a proper page. So let's continue with this thing in the next part. And again, thank you for watching.